Right, welcome back to part 3. We just put some paint on this front bumper. Now I put a bit of white spirits in to thin it out, but not much. The idea was just to get a thick coat onto it. Obviously let it dry, we'll sand it all back. It goes on patchy and it does run. It's not the easiest stuff in the world to put on, I must admit, and there's flies landing on it, so that's not ideal. But the paint's on nonetheless. So we'll leave this to dry now, go nice and hard, probably a week, and then we'll wet and dry it all back nice and smooth, and then add a second coat onto it and see what it starts to come out like. Right, moving on to the van itself, we're just painting around the outsides here, around the door seals and the door jambs first. Give that a bit of time to go off nice and hard, and sand it all back down and give it a second coat. I haven't used any white spirits on this, just get it on nice and thick. Just about to take on the sliding door on the inside, so obviously I've masked up, removed the seal. We're going to get behind in there, and just a bit of a tip, if you can see it, I put some masking tape on the door card just to make sure I don't go painting my carpet, because that wouldn't be fun, would it? Right, okay, we'll put some paint on. Some of the internet forums suggested using foam brushes, but to be honest I found a normal paintbrush is probably just as efficient, probably even more so. So let's start putting some paint on this, on these panels here. Plan is just to get it on nice and thick, and then obviously we'll sand it all back nice and flat and add a second coat on after. And we're really at the point of no return now, so let's just hope it turns out well. Right, so we'll put some paint on the van. There's 250ml there of paint. Paint goes a really long way, and I'm adding about 20% of white spirits to it. So I'll tip that just, I don't know, 290, something like that. Give it a good mix, and then we'll take it to the van and I'll show you how I'm putting it on. So a good rule of thumb when you're mixing this, apparently, I've seen, and if you take your stirrer out and watch the drips, and you want it to start actually dripping for about at about 3 to 5 seconds. That isn't even dripping yet, so what I'm going to do is add a bit more white spirits and see if we can get that drip we want. Okay, so giving it a good stir, we count 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're about 4 seconds there, so I think we're good to go. Okay, so we've got the roller in one hand, this sponge brush on the other hand. I know I said I didn't use them, but this is actually very useful. And when we get the air bubbles, which we do get air bubbles, some people say they don't, for some reason I am. So after we've rolled it on, we're just going to brush the air bubbles out with this. Right, it's the first time I'm doing the side of the van, so wish me luck. Right, now before that starts to dry too quick, now we want our brush. Right, there we go, so we got the paint on. Didn't really want to film paint and brush all at the same time, it's a bit too much going on. It's gone on fairly well, it's going to have to be rubbed down. There's always drips and things, but it's getting there, it's the first coat. So we'll let this dry, rub it all back. Right, after the first coat of paint, there's a lot of effort goes into sanding it down. I have just found out, I just spent 2 hours sanding this down. Maybe did it in a little bit too much heat when we put the paint on. It dried really quick, really blotchy. So it's took me a long time to sand it back down. It's all nice and smooth now, and I think the second coat will be less bumpy. But I mean, that's the name of the game. You're painting it on. This is why they spray it, I suppose, because spraying is just so much more accurate, smoother, leaves an even layer of paint, where when you're rolling it on and brushing it, it's very difficult to get that all smoothed out. So you have to put a lot more effort into sanding. The back has had 2 coats, so I suppose the good news is the back took a lot less more sanding than it did the side. So there is obviously method in the madness, or madness in the method, whichever way around it goes. The second coat did seem to go on a lot smoother, so that was easy to rub down. I've still not rubbed down this side, purely because I've run out of time, run out of energy, and quite frankly my arms are killing me now. So I suppose this is worth pointing out really. The paint goes on so-so. Not too bad, but if you want a decent finish, you've got to be prepared to put the effort in and rub it all back down. I could use a sander, but to be fair, the sander does leave sort of trace marks. I suppose it's difficult to explain, like little train tracks in the paint or the filler when I've used it in the past. So I didn't really want to risk that on the paint, so I've done it all by hand using the block. So it's smooth now, and we'll wash it down, put another coat on. I think really don't put the paint on in such heat and it won't dry as quick, and you got a bit of a chance to smooth it off. And also treat it in smaller sections than what I did when I showed you doing all that back section there. By the time I got back to the top, you could probably hear it on the video, it just wasn't going to smooth out the same. So there you go, this is where we're at. So next time we'll be putting another coat of paint on, and hopefully using less grit to keep it sanded down smoother, and then probably a third coat as well. Unfortunately there are places where you're sort of treading close to the line and you sort of expose a bit of metal, so you've got to try and stay off those areas as best as you can. Obviously that'll just keep happening. No matter how much paint you put on, you're going to wear through sometimes, so that is definitely worth noting. Figure out where the weak spots are on the van, and obviously just don't sand them anywhere near as much. And yeah, as soon as you put the sander on, you'll see the high spots, so just keep going until they're all flat. And this is pretty flat now, so I'm quite excited about putting the second coat on. Just hope it goes on smooth and doesn't. I don't know what the sketch is, whether the more layers you do, the smoother it goes on. But obviously if you keep getting big ripples, then you're just going to be sanding it forever. So I'm hoping as time goes on my painting technique will improve as well. I suppose practice makes perfect, and every layer you put on you're practicing. So I'm pleased with the way it's going, I must admit. It's looking pretty good, especially when it rains and you can't see all the bumps. It looks $1 million. Obviously not now because I've sanded all the shiny finish off. But we will prepare for round 2 on the painting, and I'll film a bit of that as we put the paint on. I've still got to sand all that side, but once that's done we are pretty much ready for the second coat. It will be the third coat on the back, and just fingers crossed that it goes on nice and smooth, but we'll find out.